$50,000. $50,000. Was this a joke? That's what the Lakeside Estates Homeowners Association decided I owed them for egregious water hoarding. A phrase so wildly stupid it made my temples throb. The sheer, unadulterated gall of Brenda, the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association and the reigning Karen of our perfectly manicured prison, sitting there with her tight, satisfied smile, made me want to scream until the cheap fluorescent lights in the community center shattered. Mr. Walker, this body has reviewed the complaint. Your decorative pond, as you insist on calling it, constitutes a private reservoir capturing and retaining critical runoff that the rest of the community relies on for aesthetic consistency and, frankly, visual cleanliness, Brenda announced, her voice pitched high and brittle like shattering glass. Aesthetic consistency? The pond was a pre-Civil War retention system that fed into the original creek bed before this whole development was plowed under. It wasn't a pond. It was a small, thriving lake, and it had been the heart of our property for 3 generations. I gripped the edge of the flimsy folding table, my knuckles white. Brenda, are you hearing yourself? That water is what prevents the lower half of this neighborhood from getting washed out during a summer storm. It's historical flood mitigation. Are you deliberately trying to bankrupt me because my cattails don't match the faux Tuscan landscaping you mandated? The room was silent except for the low, aggressive hum of the air conditioning unit. I could smell Brenda's expensive, suffocating floral perfume mixed with the stale, metallic scent of the bad coffee they served. My chest felt tight, the kind of crushing pressure you get right before you snap. This is unbelievable, isn't it? The truth, the cold, ugly truth that had started to dawn on me months ago, was finally confirmed when my lawyer found the internal Homeowners Association correspondence. They didn't care about the water, they cared about the land. My 2 acres, surrounding the lake, were the last undeveloped prime waterfront lots in Lakeside Estates. The whole $50,000 fine, plus the looming threat of foreclosure to cover it, was a sophisticated pressure tactic to force me to sell the land back to the developer, who would then carve it into 2 new, equally hideous McMansions. How could people be this petty and this evil simultaneously? That secondary twist, that they were willing to dismantle local infrastructure just to make another buck, felt like a physical blow. I appealed the fine. I presented historical documentation, hydrological reports, and even an ecological survey detailing the unique wetland habitat the lake supported. The chorus of frogs at night, the herons that visited every morning, the smell of damp earth and pine needles in the cool twilight air. The Homeowners Association, guided by the impenetrable wall of Brenda's entitlement, dismissed it all. In contravention of Article 4, Section B, Subclause 9, regarding standing water volume exceeding 5,000 gallons per annum, she droned, signing the final judgment with a flourish of her Mont Blanc pen. The fine was officially levied. I walked out of that meeting, the polished granite walkway feeling cold and mocking beneath my worn leather boots. A heavy, defeated sigh escaped me, a sound that carried all the weight of 3 generations of history. It was over. I couldn't afford $50,000, and I couldn't afford to fight the endless legal machine of the developer. I was beaten. But as I drove home, cresting the hill that gave me a perfect view of the entire valley, the valley where Brenda's own newly constructed, oversized house sat directly at the lowest drainage point, a cold, electrifying calm settled over me. They wanted to fine me for hoarding the water that protected them? Fine. I would stop hoarding it. I would disclaim all maintenance responsibility for the private reservoir. If it was a menace, they could have it. The old dam, a mix of packed earth and concrete, wasn't a modern structure. It was built to be passively maintained. I didn't need dynamite. I needed to remove the 3 small, almost invisible drainage tubes that ran under the eastern lip, the ones I had secretly replaced and reinforced over the years. I simply needed to let the integrity lapse. Took me 3 quiet nights, under the cover of the moon, listening to the crickets and the soft lapping of the water. I used a reciprocating saw and a small winch. No one saw me. No one heard the metallic squeal as the pipes were pulled free, leaving behind 3 gaping, hungry holes in the foundation of the old spillway. I didn't breach the main wall. I just ensured that the next major weather event would do the structural work for me. I even sent a final, legally certified letter to the HOA. Effective immediately, all maintenance responsibility for the retention area known as Walker Pond is hereby relinquished. Per the HOA's designation of this body of water as a community liability, it is now a community problem. 2 days later, the sky turned the color of bruised plums. The rain started as a sprinkle, but within an hour it was a biblical torrent, the kind of flash flood warning we usually laughed at, thanks to my hoarded water. I stood on my porch, watching the water level in the lake creep up the old stone walls, listening to the magnificent, growing roar as the dam's foundation began to fail. It wasn't an explosion. It was a gradual, unstoppable surrender to physics. Then came the sound I had been waiting for. A deep, earth-shaking thump, followed by the rapid, frantic sound of water escaping. A sound like 1,000 freight trains rushing through the valley. The lake level dropped 6 feet in 30 minutes. Where did all that water go? It followed the natural drainage path, right down the valley, bypassing the now useless main storm drains that had been redirected for Brenda's new golf cart path, and straight through the meticulously non-compliant landscaping of the lowest property in Lakeside Estates, Brenda's house. The next morning, the sun shone on utter chaos. My old lake was still mostly full, but the excess had found its way. Brenda's manicured Italian gardens were gone, replaced by a deep, muddy riverbed. Her 3-car garage now contained 3 feet of brackish water and several very confused turtles. The $800,000 worth of aesthetic consistency was a muddy, waterlogged mess. I watched, utterly serene, as a frantic, soaking wet Brenda, still in her silk pajamas, stood on her ruined driveway, screaming into her phone, surrounded by the debris of her shattered vanity. She looked up at my property, safe and high on the ridge, and her eyes, filled with mud and fury, locked onto mine. She knew. The news crews showed up by noon. The irony was devastatingly clear. The water I was fined $50,000 for hoarding was the very water that had protected the community. The moment I was forced to release it, nature had delivered its justice with a vengeance. The Homeowners Association dissolved within the month, sued into oblivion by every homeowner whose property value was decimated by the newly exposed flood risk. Brenda's family had to move out because of the structural damage, selling their waterlogged property at a massive loss. As for me, the fine was instantly rescinded, and I kept my land. My lake, my glorious, messy, life-giving lake, was eventually fixed by the county, who rightly saw it as the crucial infrastructure it always was. My final message to the cosmos, as I watched the frogs reclaim their chorus, was simple. You can try to put a price on nature and common sense, but the water always finds its own level. And when it does, it washes away the Karens. Isn't that the most satisfying sound you've ever heard? Justice served, cold and wet.